Series of Opinions podcast, episode number 36, and we are talking all about medical dramas. We are three women discussing the best and worst of media and our opinions about them. I'm Faith, pronouns she, her.
I'm Moira, and my pronouns are she and her.
And I'm KJ, and my pronouns are also she and her.
So before we get into talking about all the medical dramas we're going to talk about, does anybody have any recommendations they want to give?
I have one.
Go for it.
Sure.
So last night I watched Aquamarine, like a show from the early-ish 2000s.
I feel like I've heard of that before.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Like Emma Roberts and JoJo and another girl, and it's mermaids and 2000s drama, and it's really funny and cute.
Huh.
That's amazing.
I've definitely never watched it before.
Yeah, I was really into, H2O Just Had Water. I really liked that show when I was a youngin'. But I remember...
Those are two no's for me, but I definitely feel like I've heard about Aquamarine lately. Yeah. Is it going through, a revival of some sort?
A little bit. I found it on Disney Plus on, the new added section last night.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why people are talking about it. Cause it's
Yeah. And JoJo was just on The Masked Singer, too.
Yep, I just saw that's the only part of The Masked Singer I've seen.
Yeah. So that might also
downstairs while my roommates were watching that. So.
Oh, so good. I love that show. It's such a good show. I have a couple. I wanted to... She put them out a little bit ago, but Lila, our amazing guest that we had on a few episodes... I guess on
a while ago. 24 and 26.
11 episodes ago.
Craziness.
She is doing commissions now, so you can get anything from sketches to icons to full-on colored portraits. So I really wanted to recommend those. I think I've shared the link before on our stories, but we can link her Instagram in the description. She's amazingly talented, and I just wanted to give those a shout out because she's got just amazing options, and she's so amazingly talented.
Yes, we're definitely gonna have her back at some point.
Definitely. Just trying to figure out when, but definitely. Yeah. And then also Bar Rescue, the TV show.
Oh my god, I love that show.
I love that show so much, so much. I would die if Gordon Ramsay and John Taffer ever did a collab. I would actually die.
I think everybody would literally die. It would be a murder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I love the show. It's back. It's very obviously different because it's all trying to rescue bars that have been hit by COVID.
So less yelling, I hope.
So less screaming at people, which is my favorite part of the show.
People on that show need to be screamed at sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm really one for, in my own personal life, not dealing with confrontation, but some of these people require confrontation.
Absolutely. It's such a good show when he yells at people. It's my favorite part.
If you don't know the show, John Taffer comes into failing bars and he yells at the owners and fixes things up for them so that they are less less sucky.
Yeah, exactly.
And more
so
successful.
They can actually be successful. Yeah.
Often he'll do a whole construction project in a couple of days and rebrand and yell at the owner so they don't suck to work for so much.
Yes, which is the best part.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I highly recommend that show, especially now that it's back. I've been thinking of it more, and it's amazing. I love it. Those are my only two this week.
I've been saving my drink here so I could open it.
Ooh, amazing. We should have merch of a little soda can with little spritzes coming out.
You tend to be in charge of the merch, girl.
Yes, I guess that would be my department.
Yeah. The artsy stuff is kind of your thing.
Yeah.
If you want to make us merch that has cans on it and says, I hope I said that right.
Yeah.
Last weekend I discovered alcoholic seltzers. I just drink regular seltzers, obviously. We tend to record in the mornings.
Yeah.
I discovered alcoholic seltzers last weekend, and oh my god. If you like flavored water, this is flavored water, but it has vodka in it, but it doesn't taste like vodka. It just tastes like flavored water.
Wow, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yep, really good. Big fan.
Do you have any recommendations?
Right. That's why I hot my drink. I saved my drink for recommendations time, and then I have a couple, and I didn't write them down, so let's see if I can recall them all.
Okay. Let's see here.
First, last night I was watching Pitch Perfect.
Amazing.
Oh my goodness.
Which was great. Also, we're the same age that they were in the second one.
Oh my
what?
God.
Or at least I am.
What the heck?
Yeah, they were in 4th year of their education in the second one.
Goodness.
I have passed that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, let's see. I had other things. Let's see if I can... Why didn't I write them down? What else have I been watching lately? It was probably something I was watching. Oh, I know what it was. The Friends reunion came out. The Friends reunion special happened this week, and it's what I want for reunion specials going forward.
Amazing. Yeah, I've seen lots and lots of like advertising for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, it's like 2 hours. We weren't really around much when Friends was in its like heyday. We weren't born really. You know?
Yeah.
And we were very young when Friends ended. Like, I never watched Friends, obviously, when it was on originally. Mm-hmm. But, like, Friends was so in this, like, zeitgeist. Matthew Perry was telling me a story about how, like, at one point he was watching the news, and the news was, like, split-screened into 6, and it was, like, helicopters over their houses. Like, nothing was going on. None of them were outside. It was just, like, helicopters over their houses waiting for them to come outside. When was the last time that you saw a helicopter over a celebrity's house where, like, nothing was happening? There wasn't anything weird going down. It wasn't, like, a news story. It was just, like, celebrities. Let's see if we can see them today.
Wow.
Like, they were just so famous, and, like, that was wild, and it was nice to see everyone, like, come back together, and, like, I didn't want, like, a plot or anything, like, it's just, like, the actors talking about their time on the show, and, like, what the show was like, and, like, what it's like to come back now, and, like, what the experience was like, and, like, that's what I want. I don't want these, like, reboot or, like, one-episode reunions where, like, there's, like, a plot where they're acting. I just want them to talk about the show.
Yeah, I think that's really fun, and I think that when you try to do something like you catch up with actual characters, and you try to do a plot and stuff,
no one's ever happy.
Exactly. No. There's a really, really high probability that you're gonna, like, ruin the show for people in their minds, like, because they've already made peace with it being over and how it ended and stuff. I've never watched Friends, so, like, I've, like, literally no idea about
Friends
anything.
Has never been, like, my top shows, but it's an okay show. I don't think it aged super well.
Yeah. That's what I
know. Things from the 90s, you know, it was a different time. But, like, it's an okay show. Like, I watched all of it, which is a 10-season commitment. I mean, the episodes are only 20 to 30 minutes each, so it's not as big a commitment as, like, 10 seasons of anything else, but still a bit of a commitment. I watched a couple of episodes after, like, I watched the reunion special, and then I watched, like, the first couple from season 1, just for nostalgia.
Yeah, I really like that. I think I that's a cool idea of how to do the reunion thing.
I was definitely thinking the whole time that this is what I want for the Supernatural reunion in, like, 10 or 15 years, assuming that we don't get a reboot, because I'm still holding it hope for that. And Courtney Cox says, like, they're not going to do another one in, like, another 10 or 15 years. She's like, this is it. Like, we're not going to keep doing this. Like, this was our chance to do it. They rebuilt all the sets, which was impressive.
Yeah.
Because all the sets got torn down, like, the night that they finished filming. It was crazy, but...
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, that came out. If you like Friends, definitely recommend watching it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
We should get into the show.
Yes, do we want to talk about some medical dramas? So we picked different medical dramas we're going to go through and talk about what we like about them, what we don't like, and some, like, good and not so good characters, and just kind of generally chat about them and, like, what makes them good and what makes them bad. So what we're going to start with, I think, is Chicago Med. Now, am I the only one that has watched this?
All the way through. I've seen season 1 and parts of season 2.
Okay.
And I like it a lot.
Okay.
You start us off, though.
What I love about Chicago Med, you know, some things that I like. There are some good actors. There are some not so good actors too, but there are some good actors on the show that have, like, really interesting arcs with their characters. I really like the patient stories. There's a lot of interesting stuff they do, specifically around, like, mental health and psychiatry and stuff.
Yeah, their psych department is, like, really good. I love the Dr. Charles, and now Dr. Charles and Sarah combo.
I love Sarah. But yeah, Dr. Charles, I love him so much in all the psych stuff. I love that. I find the patient stories really interesting, and more often than not, they're not overly predictable. Like, a lot of sometimes I find...
I disagree on that point. I find sometimes all of the medical dramas we watch, I find this one to be the most predictable.
Yes.
In terms of, like, outcomes or, like, what's wrong with patients and things like that. But continue.
Yeah. Some, I definitely agree. Others, I think they're not too bad. Decent diversity, of course. And for both patients and staff. I find this is a good show for getting attached to the characters. Like, even though it can be, like, a touch, like, a sprinkle of, like, trashy sometimes, I still watch it because I'm so attached to the characters. And they have some really well-developed and interesting characters, for sure.
I'm not sure if this has changed over the course of the show. I find that, like, even though, like, there is a big focus on the doctors and nurses, love lives, we don't see in our faces so much. We don't see a lot of sex scenes happening.
Exactly.
In this one, as we do in a lot of other medical dramas. We barely see people getting it on inside the hospital. Going home together? Sure. But we usually don't see what happens when they go home. We usually see, like, them leaving together or showing up at each other's houses, and then we see them, like, getting dressed after. We don't see anything in between, usually.
Yes, exactly. And they don't ever do it at the hospital.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in the hospital. At the hospital, they are working like professionals. I mean, there's a lot of staring at each other. Where I am in season 2, Natalie and Jeff Clark are boning.
Oh my god, who the heck is Jeff Clark? I gotta Google that.
He's her dead husband's friend from the military.
Oh, okay.
I just realized he was on Chicago Fire before he was on Men.
Yes, as soon as I Googled it, that's what came up, was Chicago Fire.
Yeah, he had a big arc on Chicago Fire.
Oh, Natalie goes through a few more love interests until where I am now, so like I had no idea what that name even meant.
But they've been making googly eyes in the hospital a lot, and I'm like, can we work, please? But now that I'm thinking about it, we've never seen anybody have sex in the hospital, and that's actually kind of refreshing.
Yes, I like that, because it's so heavy in like a show like Grey's.
Yeah.
It's so heavy in the hospital all the time. But yeah, I like that that we get to know who's together, but we are at the hospital as the audience most of the time, and like what they do when they go home is kind of like...
There's also lots of nurses in this show.
Yes, my next point was going to be that I feel like nurses and doctors feel equal. Like, even though obviously they aren't qualified to do each other's jobs, but you don't feel this huge power difference.
The nurses are very important in Chicago Men.
Yes.
April and Maggie keep the shit going.
Absolutely. Hold it all together. And, like, doctors treat nurses well and speak to them, like, with respect. They don't feel like they're a lower power level or anything, as they should, obviously. It's very obvious how important the nurses are.
April is a nurse, and her brother... Is his name Nick?
Yes.
Is on the show as well, and he's a doctor at the same hospital, so they both work together in the same department. And she's a nurse, and he's a doctor, but she's been a nurse for a long time, and he's a brand new doctor. And, like, he kind of sucks at his job, at least in the early seasons. He's not great at his job. April is saving him left and right, honestly. We know it's like, she could definitely do more than him. She's just, like, not allowed to for legal reasons. It has to be a doctor. But, like, we're well aware that April is, like, A, capable, and B, like, good at her job.
Yeah.
And that her job is important, and he literally would not be able to do his without her. Or any of the other doctors. Like, I think that's really nice. I don't know. Maybe some people who are nurses or are doctors might feel differently, but I just feel like compared to other medical shows, like, I can't really name any, like, nurses on most of the medical shows that are, like...
Exactly.
Not there for either, like, comic relief or to be bitched at or to be love interests. Like, so, like, April and Maggie are their own characters.
Yeah, they have their own like plots and personalities and like importance to the show.
Yeah.
I can only think of one other nurse there's one nurse maybe two. There's two nurses in The Resident that I can think of, but they're not even close to being like as fully developed as like the main characters. But that's the only thing I could think of to even like compare it to. This is just
in Grey's Anatomy, the only nurses I can only name 3 nurses. In all of Grey's Anatomy in 17 seasons.
A million-year long show.
Yeah. I mean, obviously not counting Boki, who's a scrub nurse, which is a different type of nursing. But yeah, Olivia Tyler and Frankie, who died.
Yes.
And we didn't know Frankie until she died.
Yeah.
Was Rose a nurse or doctor?
I think Rose was a scrub nurse.
Scrub nurse, okay.
Which is a type of nurse. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it's a different type of nursing than like the nursing that happens like when you go into an emergency department or when you're like on like a patient care floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm really excited. I don't remember when it happens, maybe season 3 or 4, but they get into a thing where Maggie can start like not doing surgeries, but like assisting in surgeries, which is kind of confusing. But just generally, I think this show is like, when I watch it, it just feels really lighthearted and like fun and easy to watch. Maybe because of the holes and the ridiculousness sometimes that it has. I find it really fun to watch. Especially with my family and stuff. Sometimes there's one specific character that like I always have something to say about every time.
In a bad way, I'm assuming, based on that sigh.
Yes.
I don't really have anything else good to say.
Okay.
Maybe just that like they've really embraced like an ensemble cast. Like there's like a main set of characters that we're following, but like all of them are pretty equally important. Like it's not like the Natalie or the Will or the Connor show. It's like everybody has storylines.
I forgot about Connor. Wow.
Is he not
Spoilers,
around?
He's not around where I'm at.
I don't really like him, so I'm not mad.
I'm not mad about that. Okay, so do we want to switch to what we don't like as much?
Yeah, for sure. I don't have much to say, just like I do find it to be a little overly predictable sometimes.
Yeah, I find that sometimes they rip off stuff from Grey's without even trying to not rip it off. Like, I don't know if you've heard this yet in the show. I laughed. I cried when they said it. Chicago's so Grey's other Seattle hospital, like there's their hospital. Yeah. The other one is West Mercy, right?
Mercy West, yeah.
Mercy West, yeah. I wrote West Mercy. Mercy West. And then in Chicago, their other hospital is called East Mercy.
Oh, they have another one, too, in Chicago that they've apparently forgotten about. It's Lakeshore.
Oh.
Because in Chicago Fire, before they had Chicago Med, like, before Chicago Med existed, in, like, the first season, one of the firefighters, his, like, fiance worked at Lakeshore.
Why wouldn't they just stick with that?
Right?
Why did they have to, like, literally rip off Grey's?
Yeah. There's another hospital, because, like, everybody, they used to always take the patients to Lakeshore, and then, like, around, like, season 2, they started to, like, take them to Med, and then in season 3, when like Chicago Med like became like a show, like then they just always take them to Med.
Right.
They stopped taking people to Lakeshore.
That blows my mind even more because it's just such an that
actually makes it less good.
literally, yeah.
Because they had other options like in the universe.
There are other like patient stories that I couldn't think of that were like literally exactly from Grey's, but the one that came to mind was the East Mercy versus Mercy West. I could not friggin' believe when they said that.
I feel like Mercy and like Mercy East and West are pretty common hospital names, to be fair. I feel like those hospitals exist. Like a lot of hospitals
will give
have
them
that.
Like a 5% less.
But also you had another option.
That.
Like Lakeshore is part of Lakeshore Hospital is like part of the universe.
And I feel like when you're a medical drama, you're gonna be compared to Grey's anyways, probably.
At this point, yeah.
Why would you? It's so, I don't know. To me, it just looks so blatantly.
Yeah, I agree.
It just looks like mind-blowing. I have a little bit of a rant, so if you have anything else
No, you go on your rant and I will interrupt you if needed.
Okay. So, in this show, my main gripe, most of the time, is that there are never any real consequences for doctors. Mostly Will freaking Halston.
Oh, yeah. He's the Meredith Grey.
My God.
He's the Meredith Grey of Chicago Med. He is just breaking rules left and right.
And you're only on season 2, you said, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By season 6, I'm like, okay, wow. Like, that gets so annoying after a while. I could make a definitive list of doctors from this show that I, as a citizen without a medical license, could tell you should not be able to be a doctor anymore.
I've seen some clips of later seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie shouldn't be a doctor anymore. Mm-hmm. Will shouldn't be a doctor in season 1.
Will should be in jail, no medical license, lock him up, never talk to him again, like...
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, he should fire him. Sharon, fire him, like, right
I watched a clip, I don't know what season it's from, where Natalie kidnapped a child and gave them antibiotics. She literally locked her parents' child out of the room and gave them antibiotics. I was like, excuse me, ma'am, that's a felony.
Excuse me. And I consider her to be a few notches, like, better than Will.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, right where I am, Will is actually suffering a couple of consequences for things that he did in the first season. He's in a bit of a crisis at the moment because he can't get his insurance covered. Like, he can't afford his higher rate of insurance that he pays because he's been sued for malpractice so many times.
Why is he still a doctor? Oh my God, I'm so... Okay.
I mean, he was wrongfully sued for malpractice, I think, but I actually don't remember because it's been a while since I watched whatever episode where he did whatever it was he got sued for, so I actually don't remember what he did. That was bad.
There are so many things. At this point in season 6, there are so many things that they could sue him for that would be not wrong, like, not wrongfully sued for. Wow. He should have been at least fired long ago.
Grey's Anatomy also does this, I find, but, like,
Yeah.
there's more likely consequences.
Yeah, the lack of consequences just, like, makes the show a little bit less, like, gripping when doctors break the rules.
Because you're like, they're gonna be fine.
Because of course they would. Why wouldn't they just lock the parent out of the room and give the child antibiotics? Like,
the
why
child
wouldn't
is
they...
gonna die. She was wrong, too. I don't know if I told you, if I mentioned that part. She gets the thing that she, like, thought the child did not have. So she did that, and it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't hurt them, but, like, it could have, because she prescribed a medication that was, like, that they didn't need. How is she still a doctor?
My theory kind of was that, like, Natalie, like, this, like, rebel kind of, like, just do whatever you want, no consequences. I thought that kind of rubbed off on her from...
Oh, I think so, too.
Okay, because I didn't realize that it started so early. I thought she was, like, fairly reasonable in the early seasons, but I guess...
No, there's been a couple things, even in the first season, where she, like, advocates for patients in ways that aren't really acceptable. That's the thing, even when they don't do anything wrong, a lot of times the way that they go about doing things is just wrong. Like,
yeah, exactly.
They're also emotionally attached to their patients every single time.
Oh, gosh.
I just watched one where, like, Natalie had a sick kid and Connor had a sick kid, and Connor was like, well, if your kid dies, can you ask the parents if they'll give their heart to my sick kid? Because I cannot handle it if my sick kid dies. And I was like, excuse me, sir, you're a doctor, you need to remove yourself from that situation. I was like, no, like, everybody's in a bad position here. No, you're all advocating incorrectly for your patients.
There's another guy who's a recent addition to the show that the very first day he started at Med, I was like, you need to fire him, like, right this minute. And in the last, like, episode, he knocked out a patient on purpose so that they wouldn't be able to express their wishes, and so they could force treatment on him. Yeah, and he's still working there, so things are going great. But when I see those two, Will and him, it just boils my blood. Why are they still working there? They need to be fired.
They'll never fire Will because he's the connection to PD, because his brother's on PD.
Okay. They need to fire him. Oh my god. This not only just drives me bananas, but I also end up losing a lot of respect for Sharon, who's like the head of the hospital, because she has let me down so intensely. Over and over and over again, she just lets Will and Natalie specifically get away with so much. I don't know, just as an audience member, you just like, why wouldn't they? Why would he ever follow the rules now after everything? Because he's never ever going to be punished. So the message of my TED Talk is that they need to fire Will Halstead immediately.
I did just want to say the thing about, like, Chicago Med that's, like, I mean, Grey's Anatomy is starting to do it a lot now, but it's a lot different than, like, some of these, like, just, like, standalone, like, medical dramas. Chicago Med is part of a series.
Yes.
Chicago Fire and Chicago PD exist and are happening at the same time, most of the time, as Med is. And so there's a lot of crossover characters. Sometimes there's crossover storylines, but usually it's more just, like, characters popping in and out. Obviously, like, you know, people get rescued from fires, or, you know, something horrible happens to them and they end up at Med, and then, like, you know, they show up to get interviewed by the police at Med. Yeah. And, like, that's a thing. I mean, it does contribute a lot to the propaganda that is Chicago PD and all other cop shows. All first responder shows. First responder shows are really in the zeitgeist right now. But, like, that's a whole extra context that's happening as well in Chicago Med, is there's, like, these other characters that we care about happening and existing in and around it. That, you know, we just see them for a minute, but, like, that's actually important to other things that are happening as well.
I have watched a little bit of Chicago Fire, like, very, very, very little, but I only watch Chicago Med, like, regularly.
I am working my way through all of them. I still can't watch any more Chicago Fire. It doesn't exist. But I am watching Med and PD still.
And then just one last point that I had as far as things that I don't like as much. I find they have doctors do things, like, just for convenience. Like, Natalie is a peds doctor, but where I'm at in season 6, I can't remember the last time she worked on a child. It's just like they just throw her.
She's a peds and ED doctor, though, right? Like, I think that in the first season, I think they explained that she does both.
Okay, I'll give a little bit more slack to that, though.
Like, she's hired as both.
Yeah, okay. I will back down a touch on that one then. But it still seems like it doesn't seem to matter in the show whether you're a surgeon or an ED doc. Like, they just throw you in the operating room no matter what your title or specialty.
The ED docs end up in the OR a lot.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
They did make Connor a surgeon, like, early on.
Yes.
He started in the ED for, like, half of the first season, and they're like, no, he belongs in the OR. And they start putting him in the OR.
This guy that I hate not Will, the other one.
The other one.
He ended up, like, he's not a surgeon, and he ended up, it's just, he has, like, bad judgment, and he ended up in the operating room with the surgeon and, like, pressuring the neurosurgeon to, like, do what he wanted. It was absolutely ridiculous.
If you're not a neurosurgeon, don't tell the neurosurgeon what to do.
Literally.
They're operating on a human brain.
But just generally, I think that doctors, they just make them do whatever is convenient, even if it, like, doesn't totally make sense sometimes.
Fair enough.
As far as, like, specialties and all that kind of stuff. But overall, even though I have that serious gripe with Will, and he should not have a job, I really do like the show, and I'm always going to continue watching it, even though I get so mad sometimes. I still really like
I'm trying to train myself to not watch things that I don't like anymore. This is not even on the list, but I like this. No. I like Med. If I had to rank the Chicago shows, I'd say Fire, Med, PD.
What are some of your favorite characters?
You're gonna be mad about my favorite.
Oh no! If Will's on that, I will never recover. Okay, never mind. I back down. Will used to be my favorite in the first few seasons. I will back down on that.
I like Will, but I think I just like Will because I like the Will and Jay combo.
I found he was so much more likable in the early seasons.
Yeah, I think I'm still in the early seasons where he and Natalie are still like in a bit of a will they won't they situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe why I like him is because we see a lot, like, the show kind of does feel like it's from Natalie's perspective a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. She's kind of like, it kind of feels like she might be the Meredith Grey of the show.
Yeah,
like a later season's Meredith Grey, not an early season's Meredith Grey. Like a later seasons where she's kind of the main character, but not really.
Yeah, I would still agree with that.
And I really like Nurse Maggie a lot.
Yeah, same. I love Sarah Reese. She's one of my all-time favorites.
I'd like to add Sarah to my list.
Yes. There's a guy, he's fairly new, Crockett Marcel is amazing. We just had him as a hot person of the week not too long ago. He's amazing. He's one of the more, I want to say, like, maybe realistic characters that they've had in a long time. He's just, like, really well developed and has a really sad story, so I really like him. I can't wait for you to meet him. And then Nurse Maggie, of course. I love her. And then Daniel Charles. Dr. Charles, I love. I don't know if I love what they do with his personal story in the seasons between where you are and where I am, which will make sense, I think, eventually. But they do some stuff with his family and, like, don't ask any questions about how many children he has and why he hasn't interacted with them, apparently. But generally, I really like him as a character. I just get confused about his family and personal life situation. Yeah. So, least favorite characters. For me, I have Will, of course. I am sick of him. Also, I think Natalie is on my least favorite. She just totally has the same mindset as Will, which I hate.
Okay.
And does some really crappy stuff in the last few,
I haven't gotten
last
there,
season or so.
Natalie's so cool with me.
And you haven't met Ava, right? Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay. I think she's really sketch and not great. You'll meet her eventually.
I don't like Nick Sexton, April's brother Nick.
Okay.
And I don't like Connor Rhodes.
I also don't like him. I think that I like him maybe...
I mixed Connor and Will up for, like, the first, 3 episodes. Like, they're just, generic white men.
Yeah.
They don't really look that much alike. They're just both white.
Yeah. Yeah.
Middle-aged men.
I thought that he wasn't quite so far down on my list, but I think I would also add him to my least favorite.
A lot of his storyline in the first season, at least, was him complaining because he's not very close to his very rich family. But he's a doctor.
Yeah.
So obviously, they cared enough to get him a good education.
He hasn't been on the show for a while, so I forgot that I didn't like him.
He's not had a single moment in season 2 where I'm like, oh yeah, Connor, I like Connor. Not one. I'm 4 or 5 episodes into the season.
And then Dean Archer is the guy that I absolutely despise and should have been fired on site. I think his very first day there should have been fired. Anyone else that you have to add to the list, or that's all?
Nope, that was it.
Okay.
Oh, lovely.
So we should move on to Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, let's give Moira a chance to talk about something.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Do you want to talk about some stuff that you love about Grey's Anatomy? Just some general stuff that you like?
I'm not even sure. I like most of it, generally, but I'm not forming sentences today. I apologize.
No, that's okay. But... And that was a really fast shift from me and KJ totally just given all that we had on characters from Chicago Med to you having to go. Do you want us to start?
Yeah, you guys start, and I'll see what I can think of and jump in.
Why don't you go first, KJ?
I didn't write anything down, so this is off.
Okay. Okay, that's great.
I wrote good and bad. I wrote nothing underneath either of those things.
Awesome.
And then I wrote private practice. I think Grey's Anatomy has like really gotten the rolling ensemble cast down now.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's still a little bit like the Meredith Grey show, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. That is fine.
Yeah.
But I think the people around Meredith Grey, they go in and out of her life as do real people in real life. I like that part. They've almost gotten better at consequences over time.
Yeah.
They've started to face more serious consequences for the actions that they take. Oftentimes there's a get out of jail free at the last minute type situation. But like there is some promise that there could someday be consequences.
Yeah, I feel like it's not so blatantly obvious that they can like do things that are like so clearly illegal and not.
Meredith Grey did go to jail for a little bit.
Yeah, she did have to.
She did spend a weekend in jail because she was in contempt of court. Like,
yeah, and she did like community service and stuff, and so it does feel a lot more realistic in that way.
Her medical license did go under review. Like, just because she didn't get taken away doesn't mean like it wasn't like. It was a possibility. Someone seriously considered it and said, okay, look, these are the reasons why you should potentially have it taken away, and these are the reasons why you shouldn't have it taken away, and we're going to weigh those two things and see which one is the outcome. Exactly. And, like, that's good, I think. I mean, I don't know how you plan to continue the show if she does lose her license. Like, you know, the show is her being a doctor, but, like, there was a potential there for consequences.
Yeah. I think they tackle a lot of, like, really interesting, like, moral issues.
Yes,
and they do so really well. I really like the way that Grace handles a lot of the stuff. Just, like, you know...
And they've gotten better, honestly, as they've had more seasons. I don't know if that's just, like, comfort or, like, more freedom from the network or just, you know, time. Like, you know, like, once you're bigger, you have a little bit more freedom. I don't know what it is, but they haven't, improved. They always kind of have been in a lot of ways, but also just, as we've gone on, they've gotten better at doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very true.
They've tackled Black Lives Matter more than once.
Yes.
And they're always, like, very consistent about how they feel about it, which is nice.
Yeah, it's just generally, like, really well written. I love the way the show is written. It's why it's, like, one of my favorite shows of all time. It's just so well made.
I feel like it's paced nicely.
Yeah.
It does have that, like, that thing that we've talked about before where, like, there are a high volume of catastrophes happening. But the way that they're kind of spread out over the seasons, if you think about it, like, it's a lot to happen to, like, around one person, like Meredith Grey. But a lot of times the things don't happen to Meredith Grey.
Yeah.
And also...
So it doesn't feel totally ridiculous, and...
Also, it's been the show's been on for 15 years. A lot happens to people in a city in 15 years, and like, in a community in 15 years or 18 years now. I guess we're more than 15. We're approaching 20 years. I think by the time this episode comes out, Grace will be done for the season.
Yeah,
but like they tackled the COVID pandemic, and that's pretty crazy to do.
Yeah, like, Chicago Med, they focused on COVID for, I'll be generous and give them, like, 4 or 5 episodes where the doctors were tested at the door, and they had to be, like, sanitized, like, go into this, like, booth where they were sanitized, and they were wearing masks all the time and stuff, but where we're at in the season right now, there's absolutely, like, no mention of it ever.
I think Grace also just handles it with some sensitivity, too. Like, I was nervous when I heard that, like, before the season started, when I heard that, like, that they were gonna, like, embrace the COVID season, and like, they were like, this is like a moment in our history, like, we'd be remiss not to cover it. I was like, oh, like that's venturing into like a profiting off of like a huge tragedy. But no, I feel it does feel like they've been very respectful of it.
Yeah, and I also really get the kind of fear of, if this was to be the last season, like, no one wants to relive that. Yeah, because it is portrayed pretty accurately to how the situation in our real life Seattle was at the time. In April of 2020, like, things were bad. Things were very, very bad. And I think
the show captured that in a way, but like I've been sitting at home the whole pandemic. I've barely gone anywhere or done anything. Like I've been to see my parents a couple times, but that's about it. Like I work from home and I do school from home, and I don't go and grocery shop anymore. Like I don't see the outside world that much. So like I hear what's happening out there, but I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
I'm existing in a little internet bubble of my my room. And so like seeing it on TV was different, and like really was like, oh, like this is putting some context into like the figure and the numbers.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you get to see what the actual numbers mean, and like what these doctors are like dealing with and have to see every day, what the numbers actually mean. Yeah. So generally, I think that the patient stories are really, really interesting and, like, well-developed. And I also really like that, put this season aside, like, not every patient is, like, 1 in a million. They do a lot of, like, more common,
They've really steered away from that over time. Like, in the early seasons, it was a lot of 1 in a million patients. But they've really steered away from that. And we are getting just, like, patients. Like,
yeah, which I really like.
Nice.
Some people are nostalgic for that, but, like, let's be honest, like, what does being a doctor actually look like?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. There's not going to be always that 1 in a million surgery that no one's ever done before. The acting, of course, is amazing. I always like to say that about Grey's. They have such good casting and stuff. And then, of course, like, the representation, lots of, like, sexual orientation and mental and physical health, disabilities, all that kind of stuff is represented really well.
And that's another thing they've built up over the seasons. You know, like, we started at, like, a base level, but we've built up over the years to get to a more, like, it's a show that's evolved, I think.
For sure. Yeah. And I think it's something that, like, this diversity and representation is, like, ingrained into the show, rather than being like, we're gonna have one episode where there's like a gay kid as a patient or whatever. Like, it's a part of the actual regular DNA of the show.
Yeah, it feels organic when they do it.
Yeah, for sure. And also, even if we don't like it sometimes, you have to say that Grey's keeps it fresh as far as like characters go, even if it leaves fans like kicking and screaming. We can't get too comfortable with anybody, because anybody could leave at any time except for Meredith. I think that has helped in a way to keep it fresh for so many years. Too.
I think if we still had magic going on, like, this show wouldn't have lasted this long.
Totally.
Exactly.
You know, even assuming that all of the actors and stuff had all their shit together.
Yeah.
I don't think the show would have survived. There's only so many storylines. You can only have so many interpersonal conflicts within a group of people before either the group disbands or you just get along. Like,
or you get bored of the same people and you don't have really anything else to.
Like, can you imagine if we'd like, okay, we're on season 17 now. Derek died in season 11. Can you imagine if we'd spent the last like 6 years still having that same fight between Meredith and Derek that we had for the seasons before he died? Like, no, we wouldn't have that. Like, we just wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
They can only have so many children.
Exactly.
Like, they would have either broken them up permanently, or, like, we just wouldn't care. They'd just be married, and we would have to focus on some other relationship that would have to then be put through a ringer.
Yeah, exactly. They'd probably stop showing Derek as much, or, like, he'd move to a different hospital or something anyways. Like, they'd have to stop.
Or they'd just be, like, passively, like, together, and we just wouldn't see them together that much. Like, we'd see their cases, we just wouldn't see them.
Yeah. It'd be just something else.
So that's all I had for the good things. Yeah. Anybody else have anything positive to add?
No, I feel like we covered a lot there.
Yeah, I think we covered it.
Yeah, I feel good about that too. Anything that you don't like about Grey's?
I mean, yes. Short answer, yes. There's things I don't like about Grey's. I don't like how the show covers certain issues around reproductive health.
True.
I think that some of the ways that they have covered it have been really, really good. Like, I don't think that they're wrong to have included Christina's 2 abortion storylines, but I also think they never covered, like, a birth control storyline. I see so many people on the internet commenting that Christina should be on birth control. I'm like, this woman has 2 doctorates. I'm sure that she's on birth control, but if the show just mentioned it once or twice, that she was taking birth control, the fact that Christina Yang gets pregnant twice is incredible. She loses an ovary in the first one, so the fact that she gets pregnant in the second time time is, like, kind of uncommon.
Yeah, yeah.
But, like, you can't tell me that Christina Yang, who so severely doesn't want children, isn't using birth control. Like, if they just mentioned it once or twice, like, you know, it's not a big thing. It would literally just have to be in passing. Just one instance that, like, I could point to when I'm having that argument with somebody and say, actually, in this episode, we see her take it. Like, because I think that's an important part of that reproductive health conversation is that those things also need to be available.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just, like, abortions to be available. They do need to be available, but also, like, contraception needs to be available so that people don't need the abortions. Like, if you're going to be mad about abortions, you need to provide contraception.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And I don't like the way certain characters talk about women sometimes. It's improved a lot over the course of the show. And women have really, like, in the first season, all of the positions of power were men, except for Addison, who was obstetrician gynecologist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, that was a female-led specialty. But all the other positions of power were men, and that's really shifted. It's mostly women now in most of the departments, which has been great to see. But I think
it's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
the show rarely calls out characters for that behavior unless it's blatantly sexist. Like, Owen rarely gets called out for his behavior specifically, and you know we hate Owen and his treatment of women. Also, the show doesn't take a great stance on therapy almost ever.
Yeah, agreed.
That's very true.
They could definitely have.
It started to come around a little bit more in more recent seasons, but even still, it's not been great.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, like, I hate to call back to Chicago Med again, but it just makes me, they are always doing, Dr. Charles is always, like, checking in with the doctors, and the doctors, they had this, like, they mentioned to this new guy that I hate that they have to, when they start, they have to do a check-in with Dr. Charles, and then if it's something you're interested, you can, like, keep meeting with him, but you don't have to, and I love that. I don't know if they just said that to him to get him to talk to Dr. Charles, but I hope that that's something that they actually
I like
do.
that, but I don't like that. I don't think it should be Dr. Charles that they're going to. I think it should be someone independent of their work environment.
That's true. Fair, yeah.
But I do like that is a
I
thing.
like the idea of it, for sure. That they are concerned about the mental health of...
We've seen Meredith go to therapy a couple times, and there's been a marked difference between when she went in season, like, 2, 3, 4, whatever time that was. I think it was around season 3 or 4.
I think so.
And when she went in season 12 after her like attack, there was she approached it so differently. She actually got something out of that because she approached it differently, and I think the show approached it really differently. And like so many times, like having to go see a counselor or like get like cleared psychiatrically to perform surgeries is treated like as an obstacle, as something that's like an annoyance that they just have to get through, and like just lie and it'll be fine. Like that's not a great message to be putting out, and I don't appreciate that.
So anything else to add about what you don't like as much, KJ?
No, I feel like that was like the big ones.
The only other one, I totally agree with what you said. The only other couple I wanted to mention was Alex's exit from the show is something I hate with my whole heart.
Yeah,
true.
I do think overall, like that's out of character writing.
Yes,
I think overall the writers do have a really good grasp on the characters. Like I wouldn't typically say that they act out of character. I think like characters, especially ones that have been on for a long time, are very consistently written.
Yeah, I think that's why it stands out so much in my mind as something that I don't like in the show, is because it's usually so consistent and they're so good at getting a grasp on their characters that something like that just like stands out so much.
Yeah, like the characters don't always do things that we like, but when they do things that we don't like, it doesn't feel out of pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then kind of what we said before, there's a lot of sleeping together and a lot of it right in the hospital. And
y'all are working, like
yeah, exactly.
Professionalism.
And I get that it's like at this point it's like part of what the show is. Like it's kind of like known for
it's
that.
Part of the show. It's part of the genre, I think, as well.
Yeah, because of Grace.
I think some people are sleeping together in the first episode of The Good Doctor. Like episode 1, I'm pretty sure they're sleeping in the on-call room.
Yeah, for sure.
It is a little bit part of that genre, but yeah, it's a lot. I don't like it.
It's a lot. Yeah, they could tone it down a few notches for sure.
I feel like it has improved a lot.
Yeah, well, I think at this point they have so many characters to deal with and so many different like plots that they don't have.
Also, a lot of the characters are older as well.
Yes, also that too.
Like they're adults now.
Yeah, and a lot of them are like married and
own homes stuff. Like
exactly, they're not all like single or living it up in the daytime.
interns anymore. So
Actually, I think that's the one thing I think the COVID season has really done too, is no one's sleeping in the hospital together anymore.
Also that,
They're going home to do that at home where it's safe to do so. Everybody's like in like full hazmat gear at the hospital, so no one's hooking up in closets. There's too many layers on.
Yeah.
Too much PPE.
So anything that you had to add, Moira, about the not so good things?
I think we covered anything that I was thinking of.
What about some favorite characters? Moira, do you want to start? Who are some of your faves out of all these many years of the show?
So many possibilities. Like right now, Levi and Helm are probably like my
Helm.
favorites. They're so
I love Helm so much. I love her with my whole heart.
I hope that they get her a girlfriend at some point.
Me too.
Yes. Xander, he doesn't really have any character development yet, but his lines, he gets the best lines.
Yes, he's the one that called Dr. Weber a queen in the first episode, right?
Yes.
Yeah, oh my god.
Yeah, oh my god,
Xander Perez.
He's so hilarious.
Xander
so
Perez
funny.
was a fan favorite the first time anybody saw him.
Yeah.
He's so funny.
To be a main
He's
character
funny. He wears rainbow Crocs. Love.
Oh my god, he's
Perez.
so funny. I also second that.
I think he's been on Station 19 a couple times as well.
That's
like,
amazing. I
while
love
they're
that.
like unloading the ambulance and stuff. I feel like he's been around,
which is great.
Yeah, I love him. I literally forgot. I was like, who is that? But
I know, me too.
Good choices.
Yes, for sure. I had a hard time not just like listing every female character that's been on.
I'm like gonna choose something else, but
everyone knows how much I adore Amelia.
I do. Amelia was gonna be the first one.
I love her so much. And Callie and Arizona, I both love. Lexi, I love too. I miss her so much. And then Meredith, I felt weird not putting her on there.
True.
And then
Meredith
Christina,
Grey, I think, is like the character I relate to the most out of everybody.
Yeah.
I'm altering my list as we go.
That's fair.
Alex Karev, not even to be like mad about his ending. Like I just he gave us so many good years. Like
absolutely. He's such a good character, and like
I'll never be not mad about his exit, but like he gave us so many good years before that I can overlook it.
Yeah, almost a balance. Yeah,
I can't like take him off the favorites list. Miranda Bailey.
Oh my god, obviously yes.
I love Bailey. Bailey gets so much more hate than she deserves.
Absolutely.
True.
She's so incredible.
If you hate Bailey, I don't even want to fight you in my comments. Just don't even tell me.
Don't even bother.
I don't have anything nice to say, so I'm not going to say anything at all about that because Miranda Bailey deserves the world.
Very true. I love her so much.
There's so many great
characters in this show. We can list so many more characters. I feel bad for like all the characters I haven't listed because like
so many out.
But favorites.
Yes, they have to be favorites for a reason. And then, so like least favorite. What do you guys think?
Let's say it on 3. We all know who it is.
1, 2, 3.
Owen Hunt. It's always Owen Hunt.
Always gonna be Owen Hunt.
If you like Owen Hunt, I'm not even gonna fight you. I just want to know why.
Yeah, just like make like a nice, really vague like bullet point list.
I'll just say okay, fair enough, or like okay, thank you for telling me why Owen Hunt's your favorite. I swear I won't even be mad at you. I just want to know why. I'm genuinely curious.
How could you find? How could you dig up a reason?
How are you overlooking all of this
literally
stuff that I can't?
Yeah, how can you search through all of the garbage to find one redeeming quality?
Literally.
And then other ones that I had,
I didn't even listen to anyone else. That was so
we've got Burke.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Leah Murphy.
I almost put Leah Murphy. I was like, she doesn't even really feel like her. You like Leah Murphy?
I liked Leah Murphy.
She's such a problem all the time.
She's not that good at her job either. I think I would overlook what happened with Arizona. Like was kind of her fault, but not really. Also, is Arizona's in a superior position, so that is really on her.
I blamed most of that on Arizona.
Yeah, that is really Arizona's fault. I don't think Arizona meant for it to be her fault. Like it wasn't intentional. It just like was a situation that got out of hand, and she was the person in charge. So like I'm not mad at Arizona about what happened. I'm not really mad at Leah about what happened. I'm just like all of this stuff is happening around her, and like she did go out of her way to sleep with attendings. Like she was really into Alex for a while too. Like she was going out of her way to sleep with people she wasn't supposed to be sleeping with, which is problematic in a work environment. But like everybody does it, so I'm not gonna like hold on against it. But she also just not that good at her job to begin with. Like Meredith Grey like breaks the rules. Well, Meredith Grey breaks the rules and she saves lives doing it.
Yeah, and she's like
Leah was not having that same result. She was not pulling off any medical miracles doing bad things. She was just like doing her job poorly and like creating a hostile work environment.
Yeah. that you particularly don't like that we didn't say?
No, I like the two ones that spring to mind are Hunt and Burr.
Yeah.
But like everyone else, I can like kind of be okay with.
I don't like Burke, but I don't hate Burke and Christina, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't
That
mind
makes sense.
but like
looking back, I feel like at the time I was pretty neutral. Looking back, I feel like I'm more inclined to not like it, but probably because I don't like Burke.
Yeah, and we all hate.
But I love
Washington.
Christina, so yeah, exactly.
So, he tried out for McDreamy. Can you imagine? Like, see, if the show would have crashed, like literally, you change any one thing about Grey's Anatomy, it would not have lasted this long. Like, say any complaint you have about Grey's Anatomy, sure, whatever, fine. Like we're here complaining right now. It's literally why we're here. But like any one thing you change, like who you cast as McDreamy, and like the show tanked in season 2.
Yeah. So, anything else about Grey's before we move on?
I just wanted to talk about private practice real quick.
Oh, yes. Okay. I didn't even have that in my notes. Thank you for not allowing me to skip past that.
Private practice and Grey's are in the same universe. Private practice is the Grey's spin-off. So I just wanted to say something that's good is that it's really different type of medical drama than Grey's Anatomy. There's so much potential. They're like created by the same people. They take place in the same universe. There's crossover between them. They have the potential to be exactly the same show. They're not. I think the show did a really good job at showing us a different type of medicine than we typically saw on Grey's, which is really good. And also like started off with an ensemble cast. Yeah. Even though it was like Addison was the character we were spinning off on. She was the anchor character. Yeah. It's very rarely feels like it's the Addison show. We care about all of the characters on that show. Very true. Fairly equally. Even though we had like 3 years to like Addison. Yeah. Before that. So I just want to say that. I didn't write anything down for bad. I'm sure I had things if I had watched it more recently. So it's been like a year or two since I like watched Private Practice on like a regular basis. That's fair.
Yeah, I've started it, but I haven't gotten very far. So I would just definitely agree with what you said.
I think interpersonal relationships got a little messy on Private Practice.
It did.
Even more than Grey's. There was a lot of cross dating in the ensemble cast, and like that's only sustainable for so long. And I think there's points where they're too involved in everybody's lives. Like in Private Practice, there's only like 6 of them, so they mix and match partners a few too many times, and everybody's like fine with that. But I don't know.
No, I couldn't finish it. I have yet to finish it, so
I know I have to add it to the list of things I have to watch. Okay, so we're ready to move on to the next one.
I'm excited about this next one.
Me too. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, KJ, me and you.
No, not very much.
We're gonna talk about New Amsterdam, which I am not caught up on. I think I'm almost done season 2, so like tread lightly with the spoilers, but New Amsterdam.
Yeah, I've seen the first and second season.
Okay, so you're not like caught up to the new episodes?
I haven't been watching it. I'm not probably going to. I'll probably wait till it's on Netflix to watch it. New Amsterdam also had to cut a lot of I think it was their last episode that they aired on season 2. They had a pandemic storyline planned.
Okay.
And then the pandemic hit.
Before the pandemic hit? Oh, wow.
And then the pandemic happened, and they're like, we don't want to air this in the middle of the pandemic. We don't, like, it was early on in the pandemic, too. Like, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know how bad this was going to be. We just knew it was a little bit bad right now.
Yeah, and that would have been, like, really, really, really insensitive.
But they introduced a new character in that episode. So they cut that character's clips out and, like, put them in with, like, a little note from the, like, main actor, Max Goodwin, and the new actor. And they're like, hey, like, we had these are my scenes from this episode, but, like, a couple that introduce who I am as a character because I'm in this episode, but we skipped an episode that you didn't see because of the pandemic.
Oh, that's so interesting. I had no idea about that.
So they are trying to be sensitive to, like, what's going on.
Right, of course.
That's really good.
But yeah, I really like the show. I'm a big fan. I'll start with some things that I like, and you guys can just...
Sure.
It's more about the characters than the medicine, like, most of the time.
Yeah.
Medicine is happening, but it's usually not, like, the big catastrophe. It really is, like, more common things. And there's a big focus on, like, the administrative decisions or, like, the extraneous factors, not just, like, crazy medical, like, circumstances. Like, other, like, financial circumstances are really important to the fabric of the show. And that's really different and interesting from a lot of other medical dramas, so I really like that.
Yeah, totally.
Also, the setup of their hospital is really cool. I'm a big fan. They have psychiatric facilities of a prison with like for healthcare, so they bring people in from like the local prison. There's a spot, like a whole section of the hospital that is like a prison, and they also have like this like kind of like socialized healthcare society, but they have like a socialist hospital somehow at the same time. Like, the administrative stuff surrounding that is like really interesting, even though it's like,
and like the children's area as well, like where Iggy does all his stuff. I think that's really interesting too. I love that area.
Yeah, Iggy Fromm's patients are always really interesting and like really different from other shows. Even shows like Chicago Med, where they have like a psychiatrist. Dr. Charles's stuff and Iggy Fromm's stuff are like two different things.
Totally.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Those are like the big things that I like.
I think that the show is just like, overall, I find it so heartwarming is like the word that comes to mind. I find it just like really lifts my spirits for like what the human race can accomplish and what great humans really are. It just gives me like hope for things. Max Goodwin is so unfazed by like money and power and not tempted to be lazy in any way or cut corners. He just wants to like do good genuinely for people, which I think it's so refreshing. He's such a refreshing character to see in power. He's a person in power that is entirely unselfish. Which is
very nice.
Wonderful to see.
Oh, that's awesome.
The acting, of course, is wonderful. I find it's really, the plot points are surprising to me. Like they're like hard to predict, which is really exciting to watch.
I mean, you do get a point if you watch enough medical dramas where like
you can kind of see it coming.
You kind of guess like what the medical issue's going to be, but like I do think the show handles it in a lot of different ways that aren't necessarily as predictable. Like,
yes, I agree. It's one of the least predictable ones I think I've watched.
Oh, that's good.
Characters are so lovable. Spoiler alert, I couldn't pick any that I didn't like. I couldn't think of one that there are a couple that are less likable because of like their rank in like administration and stuff, but still at the end of the day they're just like doing their job. So even though they're like very like money focused, that's their job.
I literally wrote like it's not their fault that this is their job.
Exactly. So there's no like villain that's like you hate them because they're like the worst. They're all likable and I guess like relatable in a way that you can understand them in some way.
The cast is really diverse age wise. It's not like there's not a movie where they all live like in an age cohort. They're all in like a class where they're all like, you know, residents together, and then they're all established doctors. Some of them are older, some of them are young. It really varies, and like they're all kind of friends, but like, you know, certain ones interact more with each other than others. Like,
I totally agree. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I don't know why that didn't even cross my mind. I knew it was like diverse as far as like genders and races and stuff, but that is so that's a good point.
Diverse cast,
and
which is
great
really
age diversity for sure. And then of course like really inspiring like plot stories and patient stories. And really I love the way that they solve, like quote unquote solve common problems or examples of problems that we have in our society, like the way they go about like homelessness and people of color's mistrust of doctors and addiction and stuff like that is really really common.
They're like, we can fix this in the hospital all you want, but unless you fix it out there, like it doesn't matter what we do in here. So they actually are trying to fix things in outside the hospital world.
Yeah, and trying to come up with these new solutions that no one's ever done before that will, like, they're unconventional, but they try to, like,
they're just like, let's
help
see
the
if
problem
this helps.
itself.
And like, if someone says, hey, like this thing put in place to help is actually not helping, it's actually hurting, then they get rid of it. Like, they don't keep it just on principle.
Yeah.
I think New Amsterdam does a really good job of that. They're like, hey, like, we're doing this, and you're like, oh, like, you screwed this up, and like, if you just fixed it a little, or if you maybe rethink this differently than how you thought about it before, because you are trying to fix an issue that doesn't affect you, you need to listen to the people who it is affecting.
Yeah, totally. It's amazing to see. And they acknowledge that it's like, we can help this one person stop, like, not be here, like, that you guys can wrap up your ankle, for example, or whatever, but it's not going to help the fact that you're homeless and will come back here for a free meal if you get really hungry. Like, they try to tackle in a creative and realistic way, like, the bigger issues.
I think we're seeing that on a lot of medical shows in regards to, like, specifically the opioid epidemic, where it's like, okay, like, we're gonna save this person from overdose, but like, we know they're gonna be back here because there's an opioid epidemic.
Exactly.
There's gonna be 6 more of them tomorrow, and like, we need to figure out what we're gonna do to prevent any of those people from needing to come here in the first place.
Yeah.
But New Amsterdam really is taking that approach on almost every medical issue that's coming in through the door. So like, okay, like this happened, like, but it's gonna keep happening unless we like find a broader solution.
Yeah, for sure. So anything else about what we love before we get on to the not so love?
Nope, I think that's everything.
So do you have anything that you don't like as much about the show?
I mean, it's only 2 seasons, so I haven't had a lot of time to screw anything up yet for me.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think there's anything that I really don't like enough that I'm mad about it.
Yeah, I threw a couple things in, but I'm not as passionate about
throw them in, see if it sparks anything in me.
Yeah, like, okay, so I find some things can get a sprinkle bit over cliche. Like, the how can I help thing is like a meme now, because it's so overdone.
I like that, though. I'm gonna say I actually like that. Yes. I think it's fine if a character has a catchphrase.
Yeah, and it's very him. Like, it is very him.
Max. It's in character for Max.
Totally. So that it's just like 0.3% cliche sometimes. Things can reach maybe a bit too far sometimes. Like Max continuing to run the hospital while he's getting like radiation and stuff. He struggled, but he was like still doing it, which is a lot. Right. So some things like that
it gave him a reason to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Just because you have cancer doesn't mean your whole life can stop. You might have cancer for years or the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I like that it wasn't easy for him.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. Like, he was really struggling and couldn't get to the hospital sometimes.
To ask for help sometimes. And I think that's okay. I think we need to normalize asking for help and recognizing that people are limited. Also, a lot of people, I mean, Max probably could have because he worked as a hospital administrator and a doctor, but a lot of people with cancer can't afford to stop working.
Yeah.
Yeah. They need to go to work every day.
Yeah, he just wanted to work so bad.
They are, yeah.
But yeah, that's not necessarily things that I hate, just things that I thought of, kind of. It's just such a wonderful show. I love it so much.
I agree.
So favorite characters. I love Iggy so much. Like, so incredibly much.
I didn't put Iggy on my list.
That's interesting.
But I could have. Iggy's not a great...
It's maybe starting where I'm at.
Iggy's not a great husband.
I think that what you're referring to is starting where I'm at, like, just barely starting. So I can see it over the hill.
Yeah.
But at this moment, I love him with my whole heart. I
love Iggy.
I love him so much. He just does his job so well and cares so much. He's just so good at it. I love VJ Hooer so much.
Oh my god, yeah, VJ's cute.
He's so wholesome, and he's just someone I never thought that I would love so much. A character that I like.
Yeah, older men aren't usually characters I respond super well to.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. I like him a lot.
Ella, I love as well. I just love her a lot. I love when she shows up. She's a pretty minor character. I don't know if she gets...
She's had some good storylines. I don't know if you've gotten to this, but Ella has a mental illness.
I haven't. I can't wait for her to be more on screen.
Yeah, she has a mental illness. That storyline's been really interesting.
And then Lauren, too.
Yeah, Lauren's great. I love Lauren. None of those people were on my top favorites, but I love all of them.
Yes. I know, right? Like, there's none that you're like, yeah, no, I don't like them. Like, they all probably could be on this list.
I'd like to actually put Lauren on my list as well. Lauren is a really great character, and like her storylines are really good, and I'm a big fan of her. And her addiction storyline reminded me of Amelia in a lot of ways.
Yes, that's maybe why I like her so much. But I love her so much, and she's so, I don't know, she's so realistic, and she feels really, I don't know, relatable, and she feels like a real person. Not that the other ones don't. They all feel real. Her face reminds
me of Genevieve Padalecki.
Yeah. That's fair. That is really fair. Like Amelia and her put together, maybe. A little bit. Yeah. So who's on your list then?
My list is pretty basic. Like, it's the most basic favorites.
Literally all the main ones. Yeah.
Max and Helen.
I love Helen so much.
Helen's great. I love Helen.
Okay, so she was in Doctor Who, and she is my least favorite Doctor Who character of all time. My least favorite companion, anyways. And so I had a really, I felt myself kind of dragging my feet to, like her almost. But she is I love her so much in this show. She's great.
She really tempers Max when he gets a little bit manic. I would not be surprised if Max has some mania happening. Max definitely has some mental health happening in season 2. I don't want to diagnose him because I'm not qualified to do that, but something is happening with him. But I feel like Helen kind of tempers that more compulsive yes man of him, and it's okay, hey, like, I like that you have this big idea, but you need to realistically find a way to make that happen.
Exactly.
You
And
need to
you
ground
can't
it
do
in
it all.
reality,
You can't say yes to everything, and you have to make decisions. Like, in his position of power, he wants to say yes to everybody and do everything for everybody and not cut anything, but that's, like, not realistic.
In the first, like, couple episodes where he was just saying yes to everything, I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
There's gonna be consequences for these actions. This show does do consequences for your actions.
Yes, definitely. It does.
That is great.
If you do something bad happens in return.
And who else is on your list?
That's pretty much it. I mean, everybody.
Okay, everybody, I know. Do you have any least favorite? I don't have any.
I put Karen Brantley, but, like, the administrative lady.
Yeah.
But I don't, like, you're right, she is just doing her job. I really wrote Karen Brantley ?
Yeah, I know.
She is a bit of an actual, like, Karen. In addition to her name being Karen, she is a bit of a Karen. And, like, her main purpose on the show is she's the rich white lady who tells them that they don't have the money to do everything.
Yeah. She's the one who has to, like, crush Max's dreams of, like, changing the world because they don't have all the money in the world.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't find her, like, cruel or mean or anything. She's like...
a chairperson on a board. Like, that's what chair people
like,
do.
You're
like, hey, you're spending too much money. Please stop spending money. Please find a way to make us money, and then you can spend more.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't do
if you don't make us money, we're not spending any.
Yeah. Like, if I was forced to, like, pick a quote unquote, like, villain of the show, I guess it would have to be her.
But
she's in no way.
Capitalism.
Yeah.
The disease of capitalism.
Okay, so anything else about New Amsterdam before we move on?
No, I don't think so.
It's such a good show. The music on this show, I love. That's one of my favorite parts. Is the music and, like, the little, like, drums at the beginning. I don't know. I'm just such a sucker for, like, this, like, consistency through a show, and there's, like, that little, like, drums thing at the beginning. I love it. It's so good. Just one other thing I love about the show. I guess I'm gonna solo talk about The Resident.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so you guys have both not seen this.
We will comment, but we don't have anything much to say.
Yeah. Okay, and this is, like, really different for me. I have not seen the first season, but I've seen only this season of The Resident.
Which is season
I might have seen last season too. Never, that's a lie. I saw last season 3 and 4. I have not watched season 1 and 2. Yeah, I didn't do it on purpose. I just, like, started, like, my parents
were watching.
We always, like, watch TV together at night, and they just started, like, asking, can we watch this? Do you mind if we watch our show because it's on tonight? And so I just, like, started being there while they watched it, and I freaking love it. It's so good and it's so different.
Many shows like that.
Totally.
That's great.
It's so, I am usually so against that kind of thing. Like,
yeah, I'll go back to the beginning and watch from the beginning.
I hate the fact that I'm even, like, right now talking about it, and I haven't seen the first 2 seasons. Sometimes I have to, like, ask them and be like, okay, like, what is happening? Who is that, and why are they, like, important? But I found this really good, like, little blurb on a Reddit forum about The Resident, kind of describing why this is a different show than a lot of other medical dramas. And I wanted to read it because I thought that it was so good. It's just so well written. So it says, the difference is that this isn't focused on practicing medicine or being a doctor. Instead, it's more about healthcare as an industry and takes a conspiracy/thriller kind of approach. The tone, pacing, structure of it all is more along mystery, murder, dystopian shows like Black Mirror or Orphan Black rather than medical dramas like House, Good Doctor, ER, etc. Other differences include season-long narratives instead of episodic mysteries, prominent focus on nursing and support staff, and healthcare villains. I definitely recommend binging a season at a time if you can manage it, is what the post says. So I think it's really, really interesting in the way that it's
really interesting. Like, I might actually have to add this one to my
It's
watch list.
really, really good. It's really good. It's such great acting and amazing diversity. So many, like, such a diverse cast as far as, like, races and ethnicities and all that awesome stuff goes. It feels, you know, from that, you probably get the idea that it, like, feels really unique. It doesn't feel like just a copy of other medical shows. It's trying to be its own thing with its own kind of direction and its own theme almost. It covers bigger topics like healthcare, immigration status, insurance, kind of the management of the hospital they go into a lot. And, like, living with a lifelong illness. So, like, the same patient will return many times. You'll see them come back a lot. And then eventually they are having a hard time. They're losing hope about their illness and living with it forever. So they enter, like, a clinical trial. So you see, like, that's the same patient and their, like, full journey over the season instead of, like, you see them over one episode kind of thing.
I like that.
That's really cool.
And then I also really like about the show that there's kind of, like, this, like, dark side of medicine thing that they go for, where there's, like, this idea, side of medicine that, like, doctors can be greedy and they can be selfish and they can lie, and it's not always... They're not always a Max Goodwin or, like, a Meredith Grey. There's some real villains in this show. And they also have an amazing friendship between a male and female character. That's one of my favorite things of the whole show, their friendship, and how it's so incredibly platonic. Like, you never even consider that there could be anything there.
I appreciate that. You know, I appreciate that.
I knew you would. That's why I wanted to mention it. It's such a great relationship. I love their friendship so much.
That's amazing.
But yeah, it's such a cool show. It's got it's shot really differently. It's got a lot of, like, cool tones. It feels very dystopian, kind of.
That sounds really interesting.
It's really cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's
and
really
very
cool.
different from anything else we've talked about this episode.
Very much. Very different. I don't obviously know how the first couple seasons are. I will for sure watch them at some point. So what I don't like as much about the show, it seems like it's a whole hospital run by a handful of doctors, which is, like, kind of common for these medical dramas. They focus on like these 5 or 6 doctors. We spend time with all these characters, but I sometimes find it's lacking in, like, really, really connecting me and rooting me to these characters/doctors and their, like, personal lives and their wants and beliefs and all that kind of stuff. It kind of feels kind of surface level sometimes. You don't get totally, like, my heart isn't totally connected. But again, that might also be because it's season 3 and 4 and you're supposed to be already connected. I honestly didn't think of that until I was reading that. Some characters more than others I don't feel as connected to. I mean, there's a couple that I really, really, really strongly hate, but that's, like, because they're, like, they're villains of the show.
It does make me want to have somebody who's never watched Grey's Anatomy before watch, like, season, like, 8 and tell me if they care about Meredith Grey at all.
Yeah, that would be so interesting.
Like,
I
how
guess
much
eventually they just decide that you have to be connected to them at this point, and they just stop.
Yeah. We've been here for 17 seasons. At some point, they're just like, I guess you guys like Meredith Grey. At this point, you've been through all these things with her. You know where she's coming from. I find a lot of people that don't like Amelia. It's because they haven't seen her private practice arc.
Yeah,
they don't know where she's coming from. I think the show has done some work, but I think the first, like, season she was on, like, it's hard to understand where she's at.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a thing that I feel, that I don't feel that I feel super strongly about anyone in particular, except for the ones that we're taught to hate. They did a really weird thing. I know you guys won't get it, but in the last episode of the 4th season, I guess, one of the characters has a baby, and I don't know if it's because of COVID they didn't want to hire a real baby, but I'm like, I would put money on it that it's a doll.
There's been a lot of changes in the last couple of years about
laws and
about
stuff.
having children, and specifically infants on set. A lot of shows are using dolls. Like, it's just like the amount of effort it goes into bringing a baby on set when it's not really needed, especially if it's, like, just being born. Like,
it's not just the fact that it's a doll. It was a doll that they CGI'd the face onto, and it looks really strange. I don't know. It didn't feel like they put enough effort into it, and it really kind of ruined this wholesome moment of this character having a baby, because you're like, oh my god, what is that?
Valid.
I put, like, just a touch more money into the CGI. It was just really distracting.
We should avoid CGI faces if possible.
And then for anyone who has seen the show, this doctor who we hate, you're taught to hate him, he's awful. He is in this accident and hurts his hand, I think, and shoulder. Like, he's a surgeon and for sure hurts
hands
his hand
are important.
is the idea. Yeah. And then he recovers, like, so incredibly quickly. And so it's this
oh my goodness
character that you hate, and then he's struggling, but then, and being awful to all the physical therapy people and all the other physical therapy patients, he's just the worst. And then he recovers really quickly, which is
shitty.
Like, shitty, really crappy. And then he's offered his job back after he does a, like, I don't want to spoil things. He does a really, really awful thing.
And it gets him a reward.
Literally, and he gets his job back anyways. He's done so much awful stuff and he gets his job back. I really don't like that they've done that. I mean, I know that, okay, you have this developed character that you already know all the stuff about, and you already know him, and you already hate him, and he's such a good villain, but he shouldn't have gotten his job back. Some favorite characters, I know won't mean anything to you guys. I really like Kit Vaughn. She ends up being the head of the hospital. They make her, like, I didn't even Google what the actual title is, but she becomes, like, she runs the hospital. Mina, I love Mina so much. Nurse Jessica, I also love. And then Nicolette, but they just call her Nick, I also love. Least favorite characters, Barrett Kane. That's the guy that, like, got into an accident and we all hate. And then AJ Austin, I feel like he's a character that you're supposed to really like, but I think he treats his interns so incredibly awful. Like, so awful. that I just, like, it's just is really gross. But I love the show so much. I definitely am gonna watch the first couple seasons. And it was able to hook me in, and, like, it makes sense to me now that I could watch an episode and I know what's going on. So, like, it's a good show in the way that it was able to hook me even though I hadn't seen the first 2 seasons.
That is a challenge.
So now we'll move on to Code Black. Been a while since I've seen this, so I don't have really passionate thoughts. KJ, you've seen this, right?
I saw some, maybe all of the first season, but that's a maybe. I'm not sure I finished the first season. Not because it was like bad, just because it was not accessible to watch. Hard to find it to stream at the time that I was interested in watching it, so I just didn't finish, and I just never thought to go back to it. Like, I kind of forgot it existed. But I did like it. A few episodes that I watched, I liked.
I love the concept of it. Like, the idea of this Code Black where, like, there's more patients than resources, and that in this particular hospital, it happens more than 300 times a year, but, like, everywhere else it happens, like, far less.
Yeah, I forget where the hospital is supposed to be located that they're at, but it's like a major city.
Yeah, I think it's Los Angeles.
I was gonna say it's either Los Angeles or Chicago, but yeah, Los Angeles sounds right. And so so like they go into Code Black like a lot most of the year. They're overwhelmed. They don't have the resources or staff or whatever to deal with the number of patients they have. But patients don't just get magically better because you don't have resources to treat them.
Yeah, exactly. They don't stop coming in. I loved this show. I really miss it. I hate that it was canceled. I think it's really good at connecting you to the characters. You just feel really connected to them. The stakes always feel really, really high because it's so chaotic and different. The whole feeling of the show is like chaos because, of course, like they don't have the resources to take care of as many patients as they have. It feels like it has this like battlefield feeling almost when they're working. It's an entirely different way that these doctors have to work, and when they're understaffed and like under-resourced, it's just so chaotic and like captivating. It's just, I love it. It's just so interesting to see that chaos and trying to like help as many people as you can. You don't have the time and you don't have the resources, but you're still like trying your best. It's really emotional. It's really, really well written, and like I said, really captivating. And from what I researched, it's said to be one of the most realistic of the medical shows.
Okay, that's good to know.
As far as like treatment and stuff and like actual medicine.
Yeah,
that's what I've read. So like, don't hate me, doctors, but that's what I read, is that it's said to be.
If anybody who is a doctor of any type, not medical, a doctor, and is listening to this, hi, thank you.
Yeah, please reach out.
Please let us know. We would be so stoked to know someone who spent that much time in school cares at all about what we think.
Yeah.
Enough to even listen to one episode. But I do kind of remember, like the characters all had like very complex backstories, like right off the bat, like in episode 1.
Do you remember what you didn't like? I had a really hard time with this one.
I don't think there was anything I really didn't like that's like sticking out to me, aside from the fact that it was hard to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't remember anything in particular that I didn't like. I love the backstories and stuff of all the characters, and you guys get so invested. Yeah, there was nothing, which is good. I mean, don't have anything that sticks out.
Maybe if I watched more of it, then I would more.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that there wasn't anything to not like. It just means nothing stuck with me this long.
Yeah.
That
most of the show didn't stick with with me this long, so.
So do you remember characters? Do you have any opinions about favorite characters?
I don't have any opinions on characters. The only character I honestly even remember was that there was a lady, I think she was a doctor, she may have been a nurse, but I'm pretty sure she was a doctor, and everyone called her Daddy. Except for
yeah, Leanne.
Yeah,
her name. She's also one of my favorites. She was called Daddy, and Jessie, the nurse, was called Mama. He's my favorite.
Yes, I do remember that.
I love him.
There was a Mama.
Even whenever my parents and I see him on TV, we all
there's
Mama. It's Mama. He's amazing. He was my fave on that show. I also loved Leanne. I also loved Elliot, who I forgot about until I was Googling characters. And then Angus I loved a lot too. Do you remember any that you didn't like at all?
No. Couldn't remember a single person I didn't like, but also couldn't really remember anybody else.
Yeah. I remember not really liking Mario that much. He was kind of like a player kind of guy.
Yeah, I don't really vibe with that either.
Yeah, that didn't really treat women all that great.
I'm sure I didn't vibe with him.
I'm sure I also agree.
I don't remember, but if there was a guy who was kind of a player and didn't treat women great, I probably didn't like him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty safe to say. And then there was also the surgeon, Will Campbell. He was the only surgeon that they really focused on, and I remember him being kind of a douche, but he had that whole daughter storyline and stuff, which was redeeming. I guess it's not ringing any bells for you.
Nope. I don't remember anybody except for Mama and Daddy.
He's what's his name in Station 19? He's the captain now. I think he is. He's the captain. He's with Andy.
Oh, he's not the captain anymore.
Okay.
You're just
I am so not caught up.
That's fair.
Maya's currently the captain on Station 19. That's why I was confused.
Sorry. I just know
Robert Sullivan, but the actor's name is Boris something.
Yes, that sounds very familiar. Anyways, what I was going to say was that I know him from this.
Oh, okay.
He was the surgeon on this. So every time I see him, that's what I think of. I think of Code Black. I don't remember. I might not have not liked him, but I think I didn't like him. I remember him kind of a crappy person.
I have to find out if this is available, because I actually did like it. I'll have to see if it is anywhere.
Like this.
I'm sure it's somewhere.
I wish that it went further, because I really liked the stuff that they had. Did you get to the part with Leanne and her daughter?
A little bit.
Adoptive daughter.
I think I might have almost gotten there, but I know about it. When I was reading, I was trying to remind myself who people were. Even when I was looking up cast members, I did see that there was something about that, and I was like, that kind of sounds familiar. But I think House also might have had oh my god, we didn't even talk about House.
Yeah,
House wasn't on this list. Oh my god, everybody, this is your call out now to send us other medical dramas that we haven't talked about today,
and we will watch them and cover it, because I have to watch House still. I haven't watched House.
I have to finish House.
Okay, so do you want to take us away on The Good Doctor?
Yeah, I don't know if either of you have seen any of The Good Doctor.
I have not.
Bits and pieces.
Okay, I don't have a lot. I know I really liked The Good Doctor, but it's been a while since I only watched the first 2 seasons. I think I just had a conflict of something else that I was watching at the time, so I just kind of stopped or lost interest or whatever. But I did really like the first 2 seasons for sure at the time. In retrospect, I don't like this show. Just a heads up for everybody.
Okay.
I liked the medicine and actual cases. I do see a lot of those doctor reacts to X medical show will say that as far as medical dramas go, it's not so wildly inaccurate as some of the other ones. Although I think a lot of the other ones aren't really as bad as people think that they are.
Yeah.
It's just that we can't do something in 40 minutes that would take all day.
Exactly.
You have a 1-minute surgery scene for a surgery that in real life takes 10 or 12 hours to do. Yeah. You can only do so much with that. I'm just gonna skip to the bad stuff. There is good stuff about the show. I know a lot of people like this show. At least in the early seasons, a lot of the main recurring characters weren't super likable.
Okay.
Fair enough.
There was just a lot of them where I was like, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
There was a lot of the sex in the hospital stuff happening. Also, I think my main issue with the show is that it's a show about an autistic person that doesn't really reflect what autism is.
Okay, that's crappy.
That's fair.
A lot of people in the autistic community have come out and said that they don't like how the show portrays autism.
That's really too bad, because it's such a progressive idea for a show.
Sean has
really cool
said
idea.
some things that might be construed as transphobic, and the reality of the situation is that the neurodivergent communities and LGBTQ communities have a lot in common and are pretty close allies a lot of the time. The show is very much like coming from an ableist perspective. They work with Autism Speaks, which is an organization that's been called out quite a lot for ableism and a bunch of other not great stuff.
Aw, that's so crappy.
And like when I see queer baiting or like poorly written queer coded characters, like I find that to be like an active like kind of hate against a community that I'm a part of. And so when other people in this community are saying that, hey, like this is a show about someone in our community and it's actively harmful for us, this is perpetuating harmful stereotypes against our community, you need to listen to what they are saying and you need to either adjust or just stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah, totally take that. Like that's such an important voice to consider.
And it just feels like they haven't. And also it really does, like I didn't really think about it too much, but the first I'd say like 2 or 3 episodes is really like the hospital congratulating themselves on hiring someone who's autistic for this job. And like
that's gross.
People with disabilities are fully capable of working. They might not be fully capable of working every single job that exists. This person was capable and qualified to work this job. You don't need to congratulate yourself just because they also happen to have a disability.
Yeah.
Literally.
Their disability doesn't prevent them from doing this job, and they are capable of doing this job, and they're qualified to do the job. So you hire them just like you hire anyone else. You don't need to feel a certain way or feel like you're doing something extraordinary. You're doing the same thing that you would do for anybody else. If someone without autism had applied for that position and you hired them, you wouldn't feel so good about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd feel like you hired. You'd feel neutral about it.
Yeah.
Maybe glad that you accomplished something off your to-do list. Yeah.
Like a favor.
Yeah, this person is a doctor. You hired them to be a doctor at your hospital. Yeah, I think it's an issue. And also, it's just like, they just don't portray it super accurately. Like, and also, just like not realistic to the average experience. Like, Sean has savant syndrome, which is a thing that people with autism can have. I think it's savant syndrome. It's not something. I think syndrome's the right word. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. And like that's the thing that people with autism can have, but it's not your typical thing. And it just kind of like gives you like really good like memory recall and like the way you think about things changes. And so like he's like a genius, and like lots of people with autism are very, very highly intelligent. But there's also lots that aren't.
Yeah.
And when that's the character that you're putting forward, then it's kind of the same thing as like how like we were complaining about like how women are portrayed. Like when you portray all women as being like super duper badasses, then like it doesn't really leave room for the average woman.
Totally.
Because it's not representing the community as a whole. Because there's so limited representation, then like the media just sees this one representation. They don't see it as a whole. So I'm not a fan of The Good Doctor. There's a lot of medical dramas out there. And I just don't find a lot of the characters to be super likable. Like I like Claire and Dr. Glassman. Also, it's just been a while since I watched the show, so I kind of like forgot who I didn't like.
Yeah.
But I just remember like there's a lot of the male doctors that really reminded me of like a Grey's Anatomy situation where we thought Richard was gonna retire, and all the heads of the department were trying to like get his job. Dr. Glassman has a brain tumor, so he's gonna be like leaving his job, and so like there's at least 2, maybe a couple other doctors, but two men for sure that are like in direct competition with each other to get his position, and like both of them suck.
Yeah.
Like, you're both fine doctors, but, like, you both suck.
Totally fair. Yeah, that's really interesting. I am really glad that you talked about that, because I was still under the impression that you liked this show, and so every time I see it, I kind of, like, think of you and, like, think of it.
I did really like it the first, like, 2 seasons I watched, but I also am not part of the autism community, so I don't view it the same way that someone from that community does, and, like, then I just kind of stopped watching it, and then I did see, I don't know, like, a couple of weeks ago, I saw a couple of people, like, saying, like, oh, like, I don't, like, this isn't a good representation of our community, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. I clicked on a few videos, you know how you do.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like, this is a very common thing for people in the actual community that is being portrayed here, that they don't like how they're being represented, and I don't like that. I can totally understand where these people are coming from when they say they don't like how they're being portrayed, because...
Yeah, I'm really glad that you said that about the show, because that's really crappy. Because I feel like from afar, as someone who just, like, knows the general idea of the show, it comes off
really
as
good,
really, it comes off as really, like, representative and a good thing.
What the premise of the show is like, hey, if we just do this one thing, it'll fix things, but it doesn't really fix anything. I think that's what The Good Doctor is.
Yeah.
If you have autism and you disagree, I think that's totally valid. Also, if you have autism and you really, really like this show, then that's great. I'm so glad that you like it. I'm concerned that I'm seeing a lot of criticism, and I'm seeing the only place I'm not seeing a lot of criticism is this Autism Speaks organization that I know is problematic. So
anything else to say about medical dramas in general before we wrap?
I guess just that if you have more that you want us to talk about that we didn't think of or didn't talk about today, because like literally I just remembered that house existed like 2 minutes ago. Just send them to us, and we'll definitely do a part 2 if you want a part 2.
And there's so many out there. So many medical shows. Okay, so do we want to do Love It or Lose It this week? So my Love It is just that I love medical dramas when they try to go their own way and have their own like really solid idea for the show, like how Code Black had the whole Code Black idea of, you know, limited resources and understaffed and all that, and like The Resident has this like kind of dark side kind of theme, and of course like when it's paired with good acting, good writing, it's just really great, because I think it's always really hard to go against a show like Grey's. It's so incredibly successful and it's like the pinnacle of success for medical dramas, so I think I love it when they try to do their own thing with it. And then my Lose It is that Will Halstead should not be practicing medicine. and that I stand by that.
That is fair.
Yeah, I think my Love It is how these shows are evolving over time. We mostly talked about shows that aren't super old, but like Grey's Anatomy's been on forever, and like it's evolved a lot in terms of how the characters talk about certain things, like just LGBTQ plus issues. We didn't really talk too much about it, but like there's an episode where like Richard's really struggling with like a non-binary patient.
Yeah.
And he's an older man. So like he's really not had a lot of exposure to that kind of like way of doing things. He's a little bit resistant at first, but like he's not resistant to the idea of it. He's just like resistant to like how to change how he talks about patients.
Yeah.
And so like I think that that's a storyline that they wouldn't have done in the early seasons. So like, I do like how the shows are, and a lot of these shows they are tackling those like insurance or like medicine, like how like the actual like medical system as a whole, because like a lot of things in North America and in the world, medicine is a systemically racist system, and there's a lot of systemic racism and a lot of systemic ableism and sexism and everything in medicine, and I think shows are starting to tackle that a lot more, which is good. It's important to be critical.
Yeah, that's great.
I think I've been pretty clear on what I don't like.
I think so too. It's been kind of a big episode of Love It and Lose It for sure. Moira, do you have any, or you want to just skip?
Like, I agree with both of your like Love It and like your Lose It fate. I think the diversity of like what each of these shows has done is very interesting. I'm definitely interested in watching more of them, and I can't really have like a Lose It because I've only watched 1.5 medical dramas. At all, so.
Well, now you have a big long list of ones to watch. So for randomized rankings, I wanted to do like that we would rank what our top 3 medical dramas are. Sorry, Moira. You only have
that's all good.
one. So my top 3 medical dramas, I would say, would go first Grey's Anatomy, second New Amsterdam, and then third The Resident for me.
Fair. Right now, mine is Grey's, Chicago Med, then New Amsterdam.
Ooh, interesting.
I think it might be that I'm actively watching Chicago Med right now.
That's fair.
That could also definitely be influencing it. I'm like at a point where I'm like done New Amsterdam. Like I'm done the season that is on Netflix. So I'm like waiting for another season to go on Netflix. So I'm not actively watching it right now.
And Moira, you just have Grey's.
Like,
I would include private practice with my Grey's, by the way.
That's fair. For me, I guess like my alternate randomized ranking is like shows that I want to watch in order like of these.
I love that. Do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Next, I'm probably gonna watch like New Amsterdam, Chicago Med, and then The Resident. If like I'm gonna watch any of these shows,
I highly recommend watching all the Chicago shows together.
Okay. So, do we have any kid names from all of this?
Yes, because I made sure to.
Okay. Yes, and I have one. I have Elliot from.
Oh, I like Elliot.
I really like that.
That's cute. I like the name Elliot a lot. I don't remember any of Code Black, so I like April.
Oh yes, that's such a cute name.
And it's a Chicago Med and a Grey's Anatomy. Anatomy.
Ooh, love that.
It's a double.
That is so crazy that I didn't even realize that those were the same name because they're such different characters.
So different.
That's bananas. That didn't even click in my brain until right now.
And then I have two from New Amsterdam. I like Luna, which is the name of Max's daughter.
Cute name.
And also the name of Ellen Pompeo's child. And I also have Helen.
That's really nice. I have a great aunt named Helen, and then my sister's middle name is Helen.
I did not know that.
I don't think I could name my kid that. Moira, did you have any that come to mind?
KJ said Luna, and I'm like, oh, I love that name.
Yes,
you can have that. You can do that. That's allowed.
Oh,
so pretty.
Until there's actual children involved, you're allowed to steal. Once we have actual children, I'm gonna have to say, once I've made a decision, you need to not make that same decision.
No longer on the table.
But until then,
it's totally fine. I really like Amelia and Maggie as well. Those are both really cute.
Yeah, I didn't say those because I did them when we actually did Grey's Anatomy, but yes.
So anything else before we wrap it up?
Nope, I'm good for this week.
This was a really juicy one. It was really, you got the whole meat and potatoes this week. Okay, so that has been our lengthy episode. You've been listening to the Series of Opinions podcast. Let us know what you thought about the episode and all of these medical dramas. Let us know what you think about them if you've watched some of them or all of them. Leave us a review. It really does help. Or get in contact with us on our social medias. Our email is seriesofopinionspod@gmail.com. We're at Series of Opinions Pod on Tumblr and Instagram. Series of Opinions on Facebook. We are also on YouTube. And we are Series of Opinion with no S on Twitter. You can find me at Miss Faith Ann on everything and at Faith Ann Art for my art.
You can find me at Moira_Frisk on everything.
And you can find me at Life Messes of KJ.
Thanks so much for listening.
This was a long episode. Thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you to Faith Ebert for our logo. This episode was written, produced, and recorded by us. It was edited by me, editing KJ. And next week we're going to be doing a character spotlight on a character from the 2S LGBTQIA+ community for Pride Weekend. So tune in for that.
Bye!